Ezekiel Elliott leaving the Cowboys. Jerry Jones released him from his contract and said he'd give him an opportunity to jump on a team that's going into the postseason and a playoff push. So he's no longer a Cowboy. For the second time, he's no longer a Cowboy. Zeke Elliott. Be interesting to see what happens if anybody picks him up, and it won't surprise me if somebody does going into the final push for the playoffs and then towards the Super Bowl. Saw a story today at the end of the day that stocks capped the best 2 years in a quarter century. Best 2-year gain in the markets since 1997-98. Doesn't feel like it. I don't feel like it. I don't feel wealthier than I did. I use this time of the year to really evaluate how am I doing financially? How's my financial position in life? Am I better off now than I was a year ago? Am I better off than 2 years ago? I don't feel it. Saw a story that rich retirees, are even the rich retirees fear outliving their money, and they have a concern, and they're penny pinching. Rich retirees are doing that. Last Friday, I saw a story that I talked about it then. In case you missed it, last Friday's pre-holiday news dump, the Department of Housing and Urban Development reported that homelessness this year hit a record high. On the heels of that, they say in Dallas, here in North Texas, HUD says that it's down. The initiative that Dallas has transformed, called Street to Home Initiative, that's cost millions and millions of dollars, that homelessness in our area has seen a 16% decrease between 2022 and 2024. You drive up Harry Hines area, coming out of Dallas Love Field, driving home, you don't feel it. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't seem like it. My question to you is this. I don't think we can solve homelessness. If you do, I'd love to hear from you. But I do believe that there are things we could do that would be better to fix homelessness. There are things we could spend that money on that would have better results. And my idea, I'd love to hear your perspective, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. My idea consists of taking on a facility, call it a building that reminds me of my college dorm. 300 rooms in it, although you want rooms larger than 10 by 10. You go out across the homeless community, you go person to person, you interview them, you identify the ones you truly can help. You bring them in, you give them a place to live, you feed them. You bring in resources that's medical, educational, spiritual resources that reprograms those people and gives them a 1, 2, 3, 4-year path to providing for themselves. And you make them promise that once they come out of it successfully, that they have to come back and participate in mentorship in the next generation. And I think it'll cost less than what we spend now to attack homelessness, and I think it'd be more successful. Love to hear your perspective at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You can also hit me up across social media on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram at Westside Jeff. Before I came to the studio tonight, I was at home having a bite to eat, walking through the house. Mrs. Westside Jeff was watching a movie on one of the TV networks. We still have cable, and I love cable because it allows me to go channel to channel. It's expensive, I get it, but it's the price you pay for immediacy and satisfaction and what you pay for. And she's watching, I don't know what channel it was on. She's watching the movie Flashdance. And she was baking a big cake for a celebration we have tomorrow at a friend's house on New Year's Day. And during commercial break, we were talking, and she said, you know what? This is one of the best soundtracks of movies of all time. And I sat there I made a homemade pizza and sat there and ate my pizza at the kitchen counter talking to her about it. And boy, she was right. Song after song after song, really good songs. And I couldn't think of a movie that had better soundtrack than that, Flashdance. And so we start talking about movies, and I said to her, you know what? She said, what are we going to talk about tonight? I said, at some point in time, I want to talk about movies. It's movie season. And so we talked about what I was going to say, because this is movie season. You know, the holiday season has historically been a time when a lot of big movie houses release movies, and it's a big time that with people off work, they go to the movies. Now, things have changed, I get it. Movies have changed, I get it. But there were some pretty sizable movies released this holiday season. So I got to ask you this. Let me ask you this question. How do you gauge what is a quality movie? What is your definition? How do you define a great movie? What are the criteria you use to identify that's a killer movie or that sucks? I'll tell you what mine is in 2.5 minutes. Movies, how do you judge them? I'll tell you my criteria in 2.5 minutes. A couple of the movies that were released recently. Gladiator 2 came out November 22nd. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Rick, about it, who I work with. And we were talking about Gladiator. He said he couldn't wait to see Gladiator 2. And I said, I never saw Gladiator 1. He about came out of his skin and said, are you nuts? You what? You've never seen that? I'm like, nah, I never saw Gladiator 1. He said, you got to see it, man. You got to see it. Great flick. So I add that to my list of binge watching through the wintertime. Gladiator 1, Gladiator 2. Wicked came out November 22nd. A lot of talk about Wicked over the last month. Moana 2 came out. That was November 27th. So we've had a lot of big movie releases, and I've seen stories about movie receipts being up. I contend part of the reason movie receipts is up is because the cost of going to movies is more than it was a year ago. Mufasa, The Lion King, came out. Several new movies came out. It's a time of the year that movies come out. My question to you is this. How do you gauge quality movies? How do you evaluate? What criteria do you use to say that's a great flick, go see it? In fact, let me ask you this. What are the best 3 movies that you've seen in the last couple of years? Doesn't have to be the last 3 months, 6 months. What movies have you seen in the last 3-4 years that I should add to my list to go see, to watch, whether it be in a movie theater or stream at home? I've not seen a lot of movies. I've kind of gone away from movies. I used to go all the time. My wife and I, before we were married, and then even after we were married, we used to go all the time. Literally, we went twice a week. We stopped doing that. We stopped watching movies because they're just not as good anymore. Movies just quite honestly suck. Here's how I gauge a movie. To me, a great movie is that I think is a great movie. One of mine pick out to you is Pearl Harbor. Great movie. A Few Good Men. Great movie. A League of Their Own. Great movie. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Good movie. American President. Good movie. You know how I Pretty Woman. Great movie. How I gauge a great movie is would I go to this theater and pay to see that movie 3 times? If I would walk into a theater to see the same movie 3 times, to me that's a great movie. There are movies I've gotten and walked up out of. I've gone in, paid, I've gotten up and walked out of because it was just horrible. I want to be entertained. I want to be escaped. I want to walk out feeling really good from a movie. What do you judge a good movie? And what are 3 movies that I should put on my list to go see or to watch at home as I binge? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I want to hear your comments at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media on X, on Facebook, at Westside Jeff. I'm Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Chris is doing Casey Bartholomew's show at 9 a.m., 9 to 11 tomorrow morning, and he'll be back in this chair on Thursday night. I'll be with you tomorrow night. A bunch of ways you can connect with me. I'm on social media at Westside Jeff. Or you can pick up the phone and call 800-288-9227. We're talking about a couple things. One of the things is homelessness. How do you solve homelessness? The other one is movies. How do you define a really, really good movie? It's movie season, right? Holiday season is big movie season. A couple big movies came out, including Wicked, Gladiator 2, Lion King recently. So a bunch of big movies come out. I know folks that spend time going to the movies over the holidays. I kind of quit on movies. I got tired of going. Last time we went to a theater was to see the new Tom Cruise movie, Top Gun, Maverick. Thought it was a great flick. I'd pay to go see it again in a theater. I'd pay to go see it 2 more times in a theater. That's how I define a great movie. That's a great flick. I'd go see it 2 more times in a theater. To me, that's a great movie. Other than that, I can't tell you too many movies I've seen. Hell, I'd rather spend the night at home. I'll binge watch through the wintertime. I'll pull up, believe it or not, the Hallmark Channel and watch some rom-coms. Those are better than some of the movies I see coming out of Hollywood. How do you gauge a great movie? And give me 3 great movies I should go see or should stream. 800-288-9227. Also talking homeless with Matt from Fort Worth. 800-288-WBAP. Matt, thanks for calling. You're on with Westside Jeff.
Good evening, Jeff. Yeah, my idea is fairly similar to yours. The building, the building I would use would be probably a old hospital, and that way the floors are hard. Every room has a bathroom, but it also has the facilities for the residents who would live there to develop culinary school. Through a culinary school to feed the residents, or a barber school that would be in the hospital that would help them become barbers or hairstylists, and HVAC companies to help them develop that stuff. And they could stay in the hospital. They could stay in the hospital as long as they were either working to better their education for those, or if they could prove that they were outside trying to get a job. And of course, you have random room checks, and if there's any drugs or anything, I'm sorry, but you're out.
I love that. Where would you do that, Matt? The building you said?
Hospitals, because they all have hard floors. They've got the kitchen facilities. They've got conference rooms and bigger rooms and OR rooms and stuff that can be changed into, like I said, the barber schools and stuff like that.
I don't know. I do hospitals, Matt, because I think hospitals don't have a lot of open space. So I don't know. I do that, but I love the concept. And use the community, if you will, use the residents, if you will, to fix the plumbing and HVAC and basically teach them skill set and groom them. And I agree with you. I think it's hands-on attention, love and attention, and groom them and send them out in the community to succeed on their own and make them promise. Make them sign a contract or something. Once you move out of here and sustain yourself, you have to come back and be a mentor. I love the concept. I think you spend less money on it and you have better results, don't you?
Yep.
Dude, thanks for listening, Matt. Appreciate your comment. Appreciate your thoughts on that. We're also talking. That was Matt from Fort Worth. We're talking about how do you fix homelessness? Spend less money and have better results. Homelessness is up 18% according to HUD. We're spending more money and it's getting worse. Don't like it. Got to fix it. It's not acceptable. I think you got to do something different. We're also talking about movies. This is movie season. As my age group, 64 years old, it used to be that holidays, a lot of movies broke and came out. People ran to the theaters. I know theaters are a little different today, but people watch movies. I can't tell you the last time I saw a great movie in a theater. Actually, it was Top Gun Maverick. But other than that, I can't tell you the last time prior to that. I mean, it's probably one good movie in the last 5, 6, 10 years. To me, the definition of a great movie is a movie, when I walk out of the theater, I'd say I would pay to go see it again and again. Let's talk to James in Fort Worth. James, thanks for listening to the Chris Crock Show. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Appreciate you calling, man. What's your perspective on movies?
Hi, Jeff. I have to say, I think one of the best movies I've seen, I'd watch over and over again, is Braveheart.
I haven't seen it. I'm going to write it down.
You haven't seen Braveheart with Mel Gibson?
No, dude, I've not seen a lot of movies. I gave up on movies because they've gotten too political and the left coast, California, and I just haven't. That's why I'm looking for good flicks to see that I need to see. I'm going to add that to my list. What else you got?
Oh, you're missing. Okay, then I'll go to the basement and go, have you seen Rocky?
Oh, loved it.
Okay.
Rocky 1 was the best. Rocky 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4, and the rest of them weren't as good.
3 is good with, Mr. T.
Yeah, I can
But-
see that.
And Shawshank Redemption?
Never saw it. I mean, I've seen pieces of it as my wife watched it, and I remember sitting there watching 10, 15 minutes of it and going, okay, I'm bored.
Oh, you're missing out.
Dude, I missed out on a lot. I told you my movies. Pearl Harbor, great movie. Animal House, great flick. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. League of Their Own. A Few Good Men. American President, great flick.
I can't believe you put in Ridgemont High. It's like such a teenager flick.
Yeah, but you know what? To me, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was just, there was an element of that was funny. Remember, I grew up on the west side of Columbus. It's best way to describe that area is I was a hill rat. You know, it was a very low-end blue collar. They used to call me a hill rat. And that's kind of the mentality I kind of grew up in. So Spicoli kind of reminds me of some of the kids I grew up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. But, that's sort of like it's what do you call, like, it's some people like it and some people don't, but very few don't really like it. It's not full of good acting or anything, but it's full of one-liners.
Yep. I got it.
Yeah.
James, thanks for calling. Appreciate you weighing in on that. I'll make a note of Braveheart. Let's talk to Mike in Plano. Mike, thanks for listening. You're on Chris Crock Show. I'm Westside Jeff. Your thoughts on movies?
Jeff, I was going to say, did you ever see the movie Always with Richard Dreyfuss, Holly Hunter, and John Goodman?
No.
It's a Spielberg movie, and it has a unique premise in the sense that, when you die, you come back as somebody's inspiration. This particular one is you're coming back as an inspiration, for a pilot, like being a mentor, but in the spiritual world. So it was a unique premise that I had not seen before, but it's a great movie because it's got comedy, it's got action, it's got, there's a romance in there, but it's an all-around excellent movie. You should definitely add it to your list.
And who's in that?
It's Richard Dreyfuss,
Okay.
John Goodman, and
Okay.
Holly Hunter.
Got it. I'm writing it down. I'm going to look that up when because I'm going to binge watch some stuff through the wintertime. When I'm getting off when Chris comes back and I have my nights for free, I'm going to watch some movies.
Sounds
Excellent. Thank you, man. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. One of the movies that I really loved and enjoyed, a series that I haven't seen forever, and you haven't either. I had to look it up and see what the heck, why we haven't. 007, James Bond. Where's that been? Why are we not seeing new Bond flicks? Haven't seen one forever. Where's the James Bond series gone? I looked it up. I read about it. I'm like, holy crap, I didn't know that. I'll tell you the rest of the story after the bottom of the hour news. 2 minutes, got to catch up with John Ingham in the newsroom with Sean Allen with headlines, what's going on with New Year's Eve and what's coming up. Ball drops coming up here in 90 minutes or so here in North Texas. 30 minutes on the East Coast. Got some news on that and some news on what's going on economically. That's coming up in the newsroom. On the other side of that, we'll talk about movies. I'll tell you where James Bond has been. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Chris is on tomorrow morning for Casey Bartholomew, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. here on the station. He'll be back in the chair Thursday night at 8. In the meantime, you got me tonight, tomorrow night, and it's been a pleasure to fill in. I love doing talk radio, just giving you common sense opinion on current events. One of the things I always say is program directors love to hear from listeners. If you like what you hear or don't like what you hear, shoot them a note. Tell them, get this guy off my radio, or, you know what, put him on more, whatever you like. His name's Bruce Collins. It's bruce.collins@cumulus.com. So feel free to share your perspective on what you feel about the radio station. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, and that's bruce.collins@cumulus.com. Talk about movies. It's movie season. It's historically time of the year. Movie houses break out a lot of movies. We've heard news about Wicked and several other key movies this holiday season, driving people to theaters. I used to love going to the movies. Used to go all the time. When I was dating my wife, we went Hell, there were times we went twice a week, even 3 times a week. There were times I used to get movie passes from the radio station I worked for. We'd go see a movie at 7 o'clock, walk out of that movie theater. I'd turn around, I'd walk into another theater around the corner and go see a second movie. Most people didn't do that, but we did. We almost lived in the movie theaters. Saw a lot of really good movies. Saw a couple stinkers, too. Nowadays, seems like they're all stinkers. I just stopped going to the movies because I don't walk out of the movie theater going, that was a good investment of my time and my money. Because I think they're crummy. They've gotten horrible. So my question to you is, how do you gauge a good movie? How do you evaluate? What do you use? How is it you identify that's a great flick? For me, a great flick is one that I walk out of the theater or walk out of a movie and say, I'd pay to go see that 2 more times. If I'd pay to go back to the theater for a 3rd time and pay to see a movie again, that's a great flick. To me, the most recent one I saw about a year or so ago was Top Gun Maverick. Probably a year and a half ago. I'd go see it again. I'd pay for it. I saw it on Christmas night. It was on cable. Going up and down the dial on Christmas night, we stopped on it. Wife and I sat down and gotta watch that. The wife tonight, before I came down to the studio, was watching Flashdance. That was another one. Haven't seen a lot of good movies. So how do you gauge a good movie? And give me 2 or 3 good movies that you recommend to see. You can hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff, like Brian did. Brian Morrison. Brian, thanks for shooting me a note. I appreciate it very much. Brian hit me up with a note, say, hey, Jeff, Age of Adeline and Ready Player One. I made a note of those 2 movies. Never seen them, never heard of them. I made a note of them. As I binge watch through the wintertime when Chris Crock comes back and sits in this chair, many nights through the winter, the wife and I will sit down. We'll go up and down and watch the movies online, pull some out and watch them. I'll look those up. We'll watch a little bit of it, and if I don't like it, I'll close out of it and go to something else. A lot of times I find myself closing out of things like that and going to, believe it or not, the Hallmark Channel and watch a romantic comedy, a rom-com. Because Hallmark Channel, believe it or not, those 2-hour shows they have many times are much, much better than anything I could see in any movie theater. Again, you got a movie that you recommend, 2 movies, 3 movies, love to hear it. 800-288-WBAP. Let's talk to Gregory from Southlake. Gregory, good talking to you again, man. Thanks for calling.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Great show.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of a lot of movies from what was called the New Hollywood period, which is from like the 1960s through about the late 70s, early 80s. It depends on different people argue about it. And 3 movies I'd recommend for you, which are all kind of in the espionage arena. The Conversation, which is Francis Ford Coppola. Parallax View, which featured Warren Beatty in the starring role, and 3 Days of Condor, which was a Robert Redford, Faye Dunaway flick. All in the 70s kind of conspiracy theory, espionage, surveillance kind of mode. I'm a big fan of Tom Cruise films as a director. I don't go to the movies. I haven't gone to a film since 2004. What I do is I find out about a movie I like. If I can rent it at the library, I do. Borrow from the library, I do. If not, I just buy the DVD. I probably have 700 movies in my library. Yeah, and it takes me 2 years to go through my entire catalog. And that's not just movies, but also some television series. But I've literally got a wall full of DVDs. And I also highly recommend the Mission Impossible series that Tom Cruise did, from Mission Impossible 3 through 7. The only movie I'm waiting to see in 2025 is Mission Impossible 8, which is the second half of 7. 6, which is Mission Impossible Fallout, is absolutely one of the best films. It is the best film in that series, and it is one of the best films Tom Cruise has ever done.
I wrote those down. I'm going to watch those. I've seen Mission Impossible 1. I've not seen all of them. My challenge with those. 1
was okay. 2 was not very good. 3, they really hit a groove with the characters, and 4, 5, and 4 was almost as good as 3. 5, 6, and 7 are masterpieces, especially 6.
Wow. I'll give it a shot. You know what, Gregory? After watching the first one, it's like, okay, I'll watch the second one. I watched the second one, and went, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
I stopped at that point because they never live up to expectations.
Well, it was but they got it right with 3 through 7, and I'm sure 8 is going to be just as fantastic. Two other things I'd recommend to you. I like foreign films, and so I'll watch Japanese films with subtitles. One I really recommend is called Cure, C-U-R-E.
Okay.
It's Kurosawa, not the 50s, 60s Kurosawa, but another guy named Kurosawa. I would characterize it as the Japanese version of 7. And it is really a great film. And if you haven't seen 7, see 7. That's the best.
Cool. Gregory, thanks for calling. I appreciate you being part of the show tonight. Thanks very much. You too, man. I said a moment ago, one of the things I loved film-wise was the old James Bond flicks. I've seen them all. Love James Bond. Where the hell's James Bond been? The man has dodged more than 4,000 bullets. He's jumped from an airplane. He's skied off a cliff and escaped castration by laser beam. Now 007 is a new kind of peril. We're nearly 3 years after Amazon acquired the right to release Bond movies through its $6.5 billion purchase of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios. And the relationship between the family that oversees the franchise and the e-commerce giant has all but collapsed. I mean, at one time, James Bond, they released a new 007 film almost every Christmas. And it was the must-see film of the year. And every one of them was good. I can't ever tell you where I saw a James Bond 007 film and then saw the next one, and the next one was a dog. Yeah, there were some that weren't as good as before, but I never saw one that I walked out and went, that stinks. I'm never coming back to a Bond film. Loved them all. I still could, when I go up and down the dial now, there's some of the TV networks, on cable that will play Bond films back to back. They'll do James Bond film weekends. Oh, I love them. DVR them, watch them back and forth. Love them. I want another Bond film. Give me more Bond. Give me more 007. I want more Bond. But the decaying partnership has scuttled any near-term hope of a new Bond film. It's a black eye for Amazon's ambitions in Hollywood, since at the time the MGM sale to the Bond franchise represented a significant share of the $6.5 billion the company paid for the studio. So the Bond films were sold to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studio to Amazon. Well, when it comes to Bond's future, the power lies in the hands of Barbara Broccoli, who inherited the control from her father, Albert Cubby Broccoli, who for 30 years has decided when a new Bond movie can go into production. All the times you watch a Bond film, you always see the credits afterwards, and you used to see Aaron Broccoli or Albert Broccoli. It always stuck out to me because I don't like broccoli, but when I saw the name Broccoli, I'm like, that's the green stuff I don't like. So where'd it go? Where's the Bond films? What's going to happen next? I'll tell you in about 3.5 minutes. Stick with me. Give me 3.5 minutes, and I'll tell you. I'm Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Coming up top of the hour, we got the news coming up in about 14 minutes on the other side of that. I want to talk about Zeke Elliott being let go by the Cowboys and a financial reflection on 2024. The stocks capped the best 2-year run in a quarter of a century. So why don't we feel like that? We'll talk about that in about 16 minutes. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. This is a time of the year that typically big movies get released. It's a time of the year that historically theaters release movies. You know, it's that time that when I grew up as a kid, this was the key season for movie releases. Movies were shot all year long, and they held them off and waited to release them around Thanksgiving through Christmas. We saw Thanksgiving time Gladiator 2 and Wicked being released. Leading into Christmas, we saw Mufasa, I think is the proper pronunciation, The Lion King. We saw The Brutalist, Nickel Boys, Baby Girls, Sonic the Hedgehog, several movies released. And I haven't been to a theater forever. The wife, Mrs. Westside Jeff, was watching Flashdance tonight on cable as I was getting ready to walk out and come down to the studio. On Christmas night, late that night, we were going up and down the dial, just her and I. As everybody left the house, we settling in and landed on Top Gun Maverick, the latest Top Gun flick with Tom Cruise, and we stopped on that and watched it. We've seen it twice, paid to see it in the theater once, watched it a second time on cable, and watched it a third time on Christmas night. To me, the definition of a great movie is one I could pay to watch 3 times. If I go to the theater and pay to watch it, and then if I'll pay to see it again and a third time, that's a great movie. Otherwise, in my book, it's not. Haven't seen a lot of great movies. To me, movies have gone down the tubes. I can't think of too many movies I've seen in the last 10 years that stick out as a very, very memorable movie that I pay to see 3 times. Beverly Hills Cop, the remake, whatever that one was called, wasn't as good. I'm glad I saw it. Top Gun Maverick's the only one I can think of that I would see. What's your definition of a great, great movie? And give me 3 movies I need to see. Because Chris Croc's back in this chair Thursday night. Through the wintertime, I'm going to spend some time binge watching some of the movies. I made a list of some of the calls that I've gotten calls from and made a list of some of those movies. One of the series of movies that I loved, that I miss, James Bond. Bring back James Bond. And why isn't James Bond? Have you noticed when the last time you saw a James Bond flick? We haven't. Used to be when I was younger, one came out every year. Haven't seen one for quite some time. You see, 3 years after Amazon acquired the right to release Bond movies through its $6.5 billion purchase of MGM Studio, the relationship between the family that oversees the franchise and the e-commerce giant has all but collapsed. It's a horrible relationship. The Broccoli family hates Amazon. They like their money, but they hate Amazon. So they have, in essence, in a pissing match to not let them come out with a new Bond flick. When it comes to Bond's future, the power lies in the hands of Barbara Broccoli, who inherited the control from her father, Albert Cubby Broccoli, who for 30 years has decided when a new Bond film can go into production. She's told friends that she doesn't trust algorithm-centric Amazon with a character that she helped to create through big screen storytelling and gut instinct. This fall, she characterized the status of a new movie in dire terms: no script, no story, and no new Bond. Now, to friends, Broccoli has characterized her thoughts on Amazon this way by saying, "These people are effing idiots." And she owns the creative rights of it. Her family owns the creative rights, yet Amazon controls the production and distribution of it. So we're not going to see a Bond film anytime soon. And that saddens me, because I love James Bond films. It'll be interesting to see who plays Bond next. My favorite Bond of all time was Roger Moore. I think Connery did a great job. Daniel, what's-his-face, okay. But maybe it was a generational thing. Roger Moore was the king of James Bond. Now, the two sides, Amazon and Broccoli, are an impasse. Amazon needs Broccoli to furnish them with the ideas for a new Bond movie, because that's where it all comes from. The idea of the Bond movie, the concept, and the storyline comes from the Broccoli family. But Broccoli doesn't want to make a new Bond movie with Amazon. So the standoff, as people say on both sides, have a divide. It boils down to a clash between the 20th century Hollywood of big screens and big swings and new entertainment industry ruled by Silicon Valley firms that prize data, algorithms, and streaming subscriptions. So they don't like, Broccoli doesn't like Amazon, doesn't trust them. Broccoli owns the rights to Bond, and no movie's going to get created until then. I want a new Bond movie. Give me new James Bond movies. I want to see it. Now, the Broccoli's family-controlled Bond has few comparisons in contemporary Hollywood. There's nothing like it. Where cherished character like a Bond, I mean, you can't think of a more cherished character than James Bond. You just can't. historically, Bond has been around forever. And it's been gobbled up by a conglomerate eager to exploit it. But across the screens and across all the assets, but the family doesn't trust him. So my question is, why the hell did you sell it? Why didn't you buy it back? Why didn't you take it over? Give me Bond. I want more James Bond. I want a new script. I want to see a new James Bond film. Now, Broccoli, she's 64 years old, had already turned down TV shows, video games, and at least one tie-in casino before Amazon entered the picture. And for much of her career, Broccoli's made those calls with her stepbrother. He's 82-year-old Michael Wilson. But she's emerged more recently as the primary steward of the James Bond character as Wilson nears retirement. Now, to Broccoli and Wilson, Bond is more than a character. They are taking creative, emotional connectivity with Bond, and to them, it's more than a character with $7.6 billion in box office sales to his name. It's a lucrative family heirloom to be handled with care, and they don't like and they don't trust Amazon. So you wonder where Bond has been? It's a pissing match between the Broccoli family that owns creative concept and creative control of it and Amazon, whom they don't trust. I don't see it getting over it anytime soon. I want it to be. I want a new James Bond film. I'll go see that in the movie theater. Again, we're talking movies. And to me, a great movie is a movie I would pay to see 3 times in a theater.